Hello and welcome. My name is Andrew Utterback.
And I'm Cole Weber, and welcome to CTRL-AC.
CTRL-AC is your every now and then look at the world of consumer electronics. So recently, Apple had its annual Worldwide Developer Conference, WWDC, and this was supposed to be a pretty big event per the many leaks that we got prior to the event.
We were expecting quite a few leaks with this, and one of them was a major lock screen overhaul.
Yeah, we were seeing a lot of reports that there would be a new wallpaper menu for customizing your wallpaper on your lock screen specifically. We were expecting widgets on the lock screen. It was supposed to be a pretty big redesign, which is eventually what we ended up getting. We were also expecting a new Mac Pro. So at the end of the Apple event this past March, when the Mac Studio came out, they on stage said, our transition to Apple Silicon is almost done. The last product in our lineup to transition is Mac Pro. And then they said, that's for another day. So we were really expecting new Mac Pro and a new Pro display, because we were seeing leaks of a new 7K Pro display with mini LED, but none of those really came. We were also expecting a huge change to Mac OS. We were seeing reports that it would be called Mac OS Mammoth, and it would be, hence the name, a huge visual redesign to Mac OS, which is interesting because we really didn't get anything like that. But we'll get to the event in just a second. This event was also kind of special because it was the first Apple event since the pandemic where they actually allowed the media to come to Apple Park and watch the event and actually get hands-on time with the new MacBooks that were announced, which was very refreshing to see. So it's still not a traditional Apple event on stage. It's still pre-recorded, but it looked great. As always, the drone shot transitions were amazing. Craig Federighi was amazing. Yeah. He clearly wants to be Apple's next CEO now that Tim Cook said he's going to be leaving soon.
Craig obviously really wants to be a meme at this point. We love Craig, but what happened in 2020 at the event with him opening the Mac and illuminating his face and then turning the camera saying,
"How cool is that?"
Yeah, that was an instant meme moment. And they've seemed to really lean into Craig Federighi, the meme. They had the part of the event where he was in a rainbow tracksuit, which was just incredible. And then they had this scene where
him shooting the basketball over the entire.
He airballed a basketball before talking about watchOS 9, and then they had this transition to iPadOS 16 where he ran through this hall in slow motion with dramatic music playing as he ran,
and waving his hair
as he ran his fingers through his hair. Air Force One himself. So that was incredible. The Apple events online since the pandemic have been really, really good. I actually like them more than the in-person events.
Honestly, yeah, they're really well produced considering.
Mm-hmm.
They're probably one of the best events I've seen.
The old events too were so long. They were 2-hour events and they were slower. And these are fast-paced and they look really nice. What we did get was quite a few improvements, specifically to the Mac lineup and iOS 16. So we got iOS 16. The first thing that was announced was a redesigned lock screen.
And this is huge.
Yeah,
Apple has always had relatively boring lock screens, considering you just throw whatever wallpaper you want on there, and there's no really customization really to make it personal. On the Apple Watch, you can select different filters or different watch screens. Yeah,
so the Apple Watch has a lot of customization. The iPhone has just never had that. I'm looking at my iPhone screen now, and you have the time, you have the date, and you have your flashlight and camera button that no one really uses. So this lock screen refresh was a long time in the making, and it was much needed.
It is nice to see that they're really trying to improve the whole owning an iPhone
Yeah,
experience.
we saw in iOS 14 they added widgets finally. You can customize your home screen. We've been able to do that for 2 years. And now you can customize your lock screen a lot, actually. So what you can do is you can change the color and font of the time and the date. And the date, I think, is now above the time. And it gives you a new little sunset indicator. You can like add a weather thing to go with the date. And then the weather and date get pushed higher up on the home screen.
They also added a feature where you can take portrait photos and put the subject of the photo in front of the time to give it more depth.
Yeah, so if you have a photo that you really like and you don't want to see the time, you can just block out the time with your portrait photo, which is interesting. It's customization. We have the option to do it. And then under the time now, where the notifications used to be, we have widgets on the lock screen. This is truly peak innovation. We've never seen this kind of innovation on any other smartphone. Like literally
Never.
only
Not
Apple.
at one point in the time. Never. Not Samsung. Not Oppo. Nothing.
No,
ever.
no Android phone has ever had this level of deep
Never.
customization.
Especially not like now.
Yeah,
In 2022,
Android 11,
no
you just
customization.
or 12, you just can't do this. But
Okay.
you can add little widgets under the time. You can have a battery status widget. You can have your Apple Watch activity rings. You can have a calendar. It's nice. It looks fine. You can change the color. I don't know how useful it'll be yet, but it looks nice.
It does look nice, and that you can change the color to match the time, which looks pretty fresh. Not gonna lie.
Yeah, you can have a whole new aesthetic on your lock screen with, like, if you had a blue-ish wallpaper, you can now change the time to be a shade of blue. You can make your widgets blue. It's just more customization. I also think that this is really important because with a lot of iOS updates, all of the new features are either in apps that already exist or more internal features that tech fans are going to appreciate, but normal people would not appreciate. So I think this feature specifically is great because now non-tech savvy people can look at their phone after updating to iOS 16 and actually say, oh, look, it's like a new phone. I have a visual change. They actually did something, which I think is nice. That's what happened in iOS 14 with widgets. So it's really nice that you have something to point at now after you upgrade your phone. And then under the time, under the widgets, you have your notifications that roll in from the bottom, which is really nice. Your notifications stack at the bottom, and you can hide them. You can expand them from the bottom. You can kind of see the notifications that are behind the top notification. So like on Apple's website, they have a screenshot from iOS 16 where it's a calendar update. And then under the calendar update is a messages notification. And you can see the name of the person and the first few words of the message under the top notification, which is pretty nice. And then under that, it shows like 6 more notifications from, and then your apps, which is something we haven't really seen before. It looks nice. It's pretty much from Android, but
It looks good too. Like Apple did a really fantastic job on making it polished, like making sure it's polished and
yeah, like it honestly just looks really nice.
and yeah, honestly, Apple did a really good job polishing it to make it flow with the rest of the phone. And how you customize it yourself.
Yeah, it
looks
does.
really
And it
good.
matches the widgets very well too. So the question now is, has the iPhone gotten to the point where it's on par with Android in terms of lock screen and home screen customization? Because you can add widgets now on your home screen, which are very nice. They come in all different sizes, and they look like objectively better than Android widgets. And you now have this new home screen UI with a new wallpaper picker and widgets now and better notification management. So I wonder if we're actually at the point where, believe it or not, the iPhone and Android phones are actually on par with each other customization wise.
And the lock screen widgets have an open API.
Yeah.
So you're not just limited to Apple's
So
widgets.
your favorite apps can just make little widgets to go on your home screen, which is really cool. I'd love to see like a sport widget that showed, like if you play fantasy football or something, you could have a widget on your home screen with your score or something like that, which would be cool. I guess the thing with the sport is kind of what they also added. So we now have live activities, which is a widget on the bottom of your lock screen where the notifications are moved to now, and the widget can update to show information that has to be updated. So like the example they used was an Uber ride. So when you order an Uber, you'll have this notification on the bottom of your lock screen that shows where your Uber driver is, and then it updates as they get closer to your house. And then they also showed like an NBA score. So you have your basketball game score at the bottom, and that's constantly updating. So you can see a live score pinned at the bottom of your lock screen. Again, truly innovation here. Like we've never seen pinned live sports scores on any other phone. This is exclusive to iOS 16. Brand new stuff. We got new focus modes too. Focus modes were introduced last year. They're now easier to set up. It's easier to make custom home pages for each focus mode, and now you can make a custom lock screen to go with each focus mode. So you can have a personal lock screen with like a family photo, and then you can have a work lock screen that turns on when you trigger your work focus mode with a non-personal picture. It's fine. It's nice.
It is nice. But you know what else is nice?
What?
Editing and unsending text messages.
Is it nice? I feel like
I feel like if you think about it, people will abuse it like to do stupid things. But honestly, if like you meant to send, like if you say, "Love you, babe," and you send that to your grandpa or your grandma, they're gonna be like, "What the heck is going on?" But so you unsend it and send it to who you're supposed to send it to. In editing messages, Apple has a example on their website where it says "edit a massage," and then they're editing it to message, which is really cool. And I feel like that'll like improve texting as a whole.
Yeah, so you can unsend messages, you can edit text messages, this is something we actually have not seen before from like a stock messaging app, because you can't do this with RCS yet. You can do this with all your social media DMs, but I feel like this has dangerous potential in iMessage. You can now send something in like a group chat and then edit the message. So you can send something, have someone respond, and then you can just change the original message. I don't know. I feel like this can be easily abused, but
it definitely can.
It's a very nice feature to have. I cannot tell you how many times I've sent a message and then immediately followed it up with an asterisk and the word I meant to type.
It's so annoying too, especially when you use dictation, like, and you don't want to like, and you accidentally send it, but like, because you're like, oh, I probably got it right. I'm smart. I can speak English anyway. But and then it gets it wrong, so then you just go in and edit the two characters or the two words that it messed up.
Mm-hmm. There are new changes to that too. When you're speaking an email or a text message, it'll keep the keyboard open, so you can talk through your message, and then you can backspace on your keyboard and actually type out a word and then just go back to talking, and both stay open. I don't really use speech to text that much, but I know a lot of people who do, and that's a really cool improvement.
Yeah, like I game and I code with like just for fun, and I don't have time to like text an entire message out, right? I'll just use dictation because I can't always sit down and type a message out if I'm like in the zone coding or like in the middle of a COD match or something. So I'll just use dictation, and having the keyboard out will help, but I'd like that you can go in and edit it like while doing it now, instead of having like the slow thing that like waits it out. And,
it seems to be a lot faster now. I don't know if dictation was done on device before, but I think it's now done on device on iOS 16, so it should be faster. What's scary about all of this is that they're really pushing iMessage, like, more aggressively. They did SharePlay last year in iOS 15. You can now send and unsend messages. There's better SharePlay integration this year via iMessage. You can invite people to SharePlay from a message. And why this is bad is that everyone else is on RCS. America is the only country that uses iMessage. Everyone else uses WhatsApp or they use RCS. Google has fully transitioned to RCS. Carriers have transitioned to RCS. And the last step in creating a unified texting standard is getting Apple on board. And Google has reached out to Apple before. They've said that they'll help them adopt RCS. And this is scary because now it's looking like they're really going to stick to iMessage, which ends up just being bad for the consumer because we keep the green bubble bullying around.
Yeah. What I really want Apple to do is make it to where you can customize bubbles on texts.
Oh, yes. Like lock screen customization, but in messages. Like,
for text.
Like on Instagram. Yeah, so
you could like change the background.
Like on Instagram, you can change the background of a text thread. So maybe, I don't know. That would just be more iMessage lock-in, but I guess that's where they're going already. We got new family sharing improvements too. We have iCloud photo library. This is actually huge. It's a family sharing photo library. So it's not the same as a shared library because I think this is automatically created when you have a family sharing plan set up. And this is like one big album that all of your family members can contribute to. And there's actually a shortcut in the camera app now that you can tap, and it will automatically add whatever picture you're about to take to your family library. So you can have all your pictures in one big album instead of, some on mom's phone, some on dad's phone, some on your sibling's phone, which is cool.
I actually think that'd be really helpful because, like, some people do professional photos with iPhones, right? Like, maybe not like totally professional, but if they're taking like wedding photos or something.
Oh, yeah.
And they can just share it to the family directly while taking pictures instead of having to go in and like tediously select each photo.
Yeah, this is a time saver. It's really cool that it's in the camera app now. So I was thinking when you're on vacation, you just leave that on and then every photo you take goes to your family library. And they kind of thought about that too because there's a location-based auto sharing. So I think you can turn this on or off, but when turned on, whenever you're with like 2 or 3 of your family members, any photo that any of you take will go straight to the family library since it sees that you're together. And then when you separate, it won't auto share them because it knows that you're taking it for yourself.
At WWDC last year, Apple introduced live text in photos. So basically you can take a photo that has text and select it out of the text and copy and paste or cut or whatever you do with it, right? So I use this a lot because I code, right? So I send code to my friends, like if they're helping me write AI or something. And being able to just take a picture, copy and paste it and send it to them just so they can hold it down and copy it and paste it, it's a phenomenal feature. But they added this to video now, which is absolutely fantastic.
So you can pause a video now as long as it is using Apple's native video player and just select text from the video, which is pretty cool. So for your example, if you're watching a coding video and there's code on the screen, instead of taking a screenshot and then pulling text from that, you can just pull it straight from the video, which is pretty cool.
And this is definitely a feature that I'm going to be taking advantage of.
Oh, yeah. And then for school especially, if you're watching a video that your teacher recorded of a whiteboard or that has notes in it, you can just pause the video, select all the notes, and then paste them into your Notes app, which is great.
This would have been perfect like 2 years ago when COVID hit and everything was online.
Oh, I know,
right? It would have been absolutely amazing. But it's cool that we're getting it now and people are going to have these opportunities to be more productive.
Yeah, it's cool. It's nice to have.
It is nice to have.
Another feature that they announced with this as another intelligence feature is you can now lift a subject from the background of a photo, which I think is huge.
This is amazing. Like, an example that they used was lifting a dog and pasting it as a sticker in messages. Like, if you're taking a picture of a family member or something and you just want to, like, make a meme out of them or something, like, just, like, like annoy them, this would be fun to use. This is definitely more of a fun than useful feature, I feel like.
Yeah, so Quinn Nelson on Twitter posted a few photos that he took of his wife's car in their driveway, of him and his wife holding their cat, I believe, and then of like a plant or something, I think. And then he showed the image that it cut out automatically of those objects, and it looked like he took them right from Photoshop. They were very clean. The edges were clearly defined. There wasn't any background, and that was on the first developer beta, which is actually really impressive. This is a really cool feature because it eliminates the need to Photoshop things just to pull something from its background, to cut people out. It's like the Pixel's Magic Eraser tool, but it's kind of like the opposite. So Magic Eraser, you select something and then it just deletes it, and this takes that selected thing and just pulls it away so you can paste it somewhere else. Not a whole lot of practical use cases, but like you said, it's just a fun feature.
Yeah, and Apple's machine learning has always been impressive. Since they released Siri with the iPhone 4, it's just been like a consistent, like, exponential increase in how well they've improved in their AI machine learning. And this is definitely a visualization of that.
Yeah, with Siri on device now, with live text and photo and video, with the lifting subjects from the background, their machine learning and AI is really good. And I think it's on par with Pixel now with the Tensor chip, because Pixel was the best phone at speech to text. Because of Tensor, Magic Eraser is incredible on the Pixel 6. So I think this is really close to matching it, if not on par with that. But we'll see. We'll both be getting the betas soon, and we'll test this out, and we'll do an update in a future episode. There were a few other smaller updates to iOS 16. We'll just go through those pretty quickly. On Maps now, you can add multiple stops, which is actually really useful for vacations. So now you can add a stop at a restaurant, a gas station, a Walmart to get something, and then your final destination. And it will give you a route to each of those things while still keeping your time at the bottom that it will take to get to your actual destination. It's really nice to have in Maps now. I think you can do a form of this in Google Maps. I've tried it. It's not great. We'll see how this is, but if it works well, then this is very nice for Maps. In Apple Wallet, you can now use Apple Pay Later. So on any product, which is what they're saying, on any website, any product, you can now buy it with Apple Pay, like you usually can, using your credit card, or you can buy it with Apple Pay Later. So what this does is it splits the payment into 4 smaller payments that are due every 2 weeks. So you can now finance anything through Apple Pay, which I guess is fine.
Financing is dangerous, though.
Because it is.
You're spending money that you don't have, like, realistically. Like, I'm planning on buying a new laptop. And financing it now would split it from $1,500 divide by 4, whatever that is, like 400, 450, whatever. 5, yeah. And 4 payments. So I start with, if I have $450 or however much it costs, I'm just gonna finance it. I'll probably get for $450. And if you don't have it, we don't really know what happens at that point because Apple hasn't released it.
No, we don't.
Like, what are they? Are they going to charge it to your credit card? Or are there going to be people coming to your house to come take your money? Collection agency? Like, what's going to go on here if you can't pay the money? Are they just going to? And if you can't pay, are they just going to give you your money back and you don't get the product, or you just don't get the product in general or something?
I don't know. It would have to be a credit card.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It allows you to spend money you don't have.
Which is actually,
it's what they said in their keynote. They were literally in the event. They were like, let's say you want to get that record player that you've always been wanting, that you can't afford. just use Apple Pay Later to pay later. So if you're responsible, it's nice to finance anything, I guess, but it's a slippery slope like any financing. And then you can now track all of your orders through Apple Pay in the Wallet app. So any order that you place using Apple Pay will show up in the Wallet app with the delivery date, which is actually really nice because if you order like 3 things at the same time, you don't have to go to Amazon to track one and the UPS website to track the other one. They're all in one app, which is actually nice. Also in Wallet, you can share keys now. So if you have a house key, a hotel key, a car key, you can just share it through messages, mail, and WhatsApp, which is cool. You can send someone your house key if they're watching your house or something. And then when you order through Apple Pay, through Uber Eats, which was the example that they used, if you're ordering alcohol, you can now use Apple Pay to verify your age. So instead of giving Uber Eats your driver's license or ID, you can just verify with Apple Wallet that you are over 21, and it gives them your age and your photo, so you don't actually have to share your driver's license, which, I mean, not practical for us right now, but it's cool to see, I guess. We got a new home app. That looks nice. The home app on iOS 15 is bad, so this looks less bad. It has your cameras at the top. It has quick actions at the top. It doesn't really change the room situation. You still have to scroll a long time if you have a lot of rooms, so we'll see if that is any better. Apple now supports Matter, which is really interesting. So now HomeKit will work with Matter, and Matter already works with Amazon Alexa and Google Home. So we're closer to having a unified smart home standard, which is great to see. There were a few fitness upgrades. You now have the fitness app on iPhone without an Apple Watch, so you can track your calories burned only through your steps using your iPhone. And there are a few new family sharing things. You can set up a child account a little easier. You can choose what content they can access a little easier. So that's nice to have. Then at the very end, they released something, or teased something, I should say, that if it ever comes out, has the potential to completely change the entire car industry. And it's a new generation of CarPlay. So CarPlay currently is where you plug your phone in to your car, or if it has wireless CarPlay, you just connect your phone to your car via Bluetooth, and it replaces your car infotainment screen, which is usually bad on most cars.
It's terrible.
With a iOS-like interface. So you have Spotify and Apple Maps and settings, and you have all these apps on your infotainment screen instead of your car UI. So this takes it a full step forward. So they said on stage that the new generation of CarPlay is built for cars that have more screens. And they were talking specifically about cars where the entire dashboard is a screen. All your gauges are just one screen. And then you have a screen by your radio controls. And then you have one above that too. So they built it for 3-screen cars, or for cars. I guess the only car I can think of is the Mercedes EQS, where it's just one gigantic screen across the whole car.
I don't think I've actually seen that car. Let me see the Mercedes EQS.
Yeah, if you Google it, you'll see it has like one giant screen across the whole front dashboard. And that's really what this CarPlay is built for.
Oh, wow, that looks terrible.
Yeah, it's pretty weird looking, but
an Apple implementation of this would look fantastic. I mean, it does look fantastic. We saw it in the event.
It's hard to picture this new generation of CarPlay without actually seeing the image. So let me describe it as best I can. So they have a animated little teaser image, which basically looks like an Apple car interior. Like, this is likely what Apple Car will look like.
Come on, Apple, you can do it. Just make a car.
We're so close. We're so close.
We've been waiting for this since, like, what? Since Apple's been a thing, honestly.
Years. Project Titan was, like, early 2010s.
Oh, jeez. Wow.
This is at least a decade in the making. But next-gen CarPlay, basically, is normal CarPlay. Plus, you now have radio controls and climate controls built into CarPlay. Above the center screen in the car, level with your gauge cluster, but to the right of the steering wheel, you now have widgets, like big widgets on your dash. So on the image, they have a current trip thing where it shows you your fuel economy, your distance in your current trip. They have a calendar, they have weather, they have a home shortcut to open your garage door. They have a now playing thing with Apple Music. And then to the left of that, where your gauge cluster is, CarPlay now covers your whole gauge screen. So you can have custom gauge clusters with CarPlay. This is huge. So the thing that this resembles the most is the new Tesla Model S and Model X, where it has the screen behind the steering wheel with the gauge cluster on, or with the two gauge clusters on each side, and then they have the thing in the middle. So on the teaser image from Apple, they have your speed on the left with your fuel tank and your odometer on the left. They have the gear that you're in on the right, and then in the middle, they have this really nice looking maps screen. So you can see your current route in the middle of the two gauges. So you really have to have the perfect car for this, because this kind of car really only exists in one form. It's the EQS. I don't think there's any other car with this many screens. This is kind of Apple's vision for future cars. They just want to take out the car's built-in infotainment system and replace it with Apple everything. Like a full... Whoa, what if they called it Car OS?
Oh my god!
What if we
amazing Car OS?
For the sake of this episode, we'll just call this Car OS. So Car OS is beautiful looking. It changes your whole car. It makes it all look like an iPhone. It would be really smooth and responsive. Would be, supposedly, because it's all coming from your phone. Nilay Patel from The Verge spoke with Apple and asked if car manufacturers had to implement any sort of Apple code. And they said no. So they just have to support CarPlay on all the screens, but they don't actually have to implement any code. So this is all coming from your phone. So your speed, your gear you're in, your climate controls, they're all from your phone being wirelessly transmitted. So the implications of this are huge. The risks are also huge, because like, what if your phone dies? Does it just switch back? Like, what if this is buggy? What if, like, it can be... I don't know. This is a really interesting feature, but it's going to take years to implement.
They have to do it right for it to be good. I mean, that's how it always has been, always will be with anything. But this is especially, like, important that they make it good, because it's something that's going to be... You're riding in a vehicle that's going... You're a vehicle that's 2 tons flying down a highway at 75 miles an hour. And
it better work.
It needs to work. Like...
And it gave a list of a few car manufacturers that supported it. It's like Porsche and I think Land Rover was one of them, but it's a lot of Volvo. Honda was the only like reasonable priced car manufacturer that they showed them as, and Volvo sort of, but a lot of high-end cars will support this. I'm sure Cadillac will be quick to do this, but yeah, this is huge because now car manufacturers have no motivation to work on their infotainment systems. They'll just assume you'll use this. But wait, it's only available with an iPhone. So when you go to buy a new car, your salesman is going to tell you all about this feature that won't work with your S22 Ultra or whatever phone you're dealing.
Or your Z Flip, like come on.
Or your Z
Flip guy for life.
Absolutely. So that's iOS 16. A lot of visual changes to the lock screen, a lot of new APIs. They said the word API like 100 times. New family sharing things, new wallet features, and then this crazy new, we'll call it CarOS feature, which just has a lot of potential. So yeah, their little slogan thing for iOS 16 is personal is powerful. So it really is all about personalization this time, which is great. This is years in the making. We really haven't seen this before from Apple. So this is great that they're actually leaning into, it's your phone. You can customize it however you want. I'm really looking forward to trying this out. All right, we'll take a quick break, and when we get back, we'll talk watchOS 9 and iPadOS 16. Welcome back. So the next thing announced is watchOS 9, and to be honest, they could have completely skipped over this. There's really not much to talk about. We're going to cover a few key things. No, really nothing has. There are new workout views, so when you're biking, you can view your activity ring on your watch screen. When you're hiking, you can view your altitude, elevation. It's fine. It's nice to have. There are heart rate zones. What I think is the coolest thing is that you can now customize a workout. So you can schedule like this whole, it's like a planner for your workout. So you can schedule a warm-up followed by like cardio stuff and then a run and then basketball or whatever and then a recovery at the end. So you can have like these pre-made workouts that you can just pick from, which is cool.
Yeah. They didn't change a ton of stuff, but they added a lot. Like, they added new watch faces. Like, one of them is, like, they did something similar with the iPhone, with the iOS 16, the portrait mode in front of the time. You can do that on watchOS now. There's a lot more customization. They have more playful and, like, more professional watch faces.
And then when you're biking now, you can map out a bike route and it will see like what kind of elevation it has and will take that into account when measuring your calories burned. So the most advanced thing in watchOS 9 is running form metrics. So this will show you your ground contact time, how high you're going after each step, just more features for people who run with their Apple Watch. They have new swimming features. It tracks laps more efficiently. It tracks the distance of a pool more efficiently. And then this all syncs to the new, slightly redesigned fitness app.
watchOS 9, they also introduced sleep stages. So basically, like, it'll tell you how much time you spend in different stages of sleep. Like, the three are REM, core, and deep sleep, right? So basically, it knows and tells you how much time you spend in each of those three and when you have woken up.
So that's cool, I guess, if you want to see how you're sleeping for people who wear their Apple Watch to sleep.
I feel like it would help with, what's it called, insomnia?
Yeah.
Yeah, like, it'd help you, like, try to track yourself and know, like, when and how you sleep and the patterns that you sleep through.
Yeah, that's cool. The problem with the sleep tracking is that the Apple Watch Series 7 is the only Apple Watch that actually has a good enough battery where you don't have to charge it overnight. So anyone who doesn't have a Series 7 has to charge their watch before they go to bed, which means no sleep tracking. Or you do sleep tracking and then you have to charge it during the day, which doesn't really make sense.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
For people with a Series 7 or for light Apple Watch users, sleep tracking is cool. And the new workout faces are cool, but not a lot in watchOS 9. They could have skipped over that. They actually did skip over tvOS. There are no new Apple TV updates, which is weird because we've also seen a lot of rumors about a smaller Apple TV, like an Apple TV stick. Like with Roku, you have Roku Ultra, which is like the Apple TV 4K, the big box. We're very powerful. You can play games on an Apple TV.
Or like the Amazon Fire TV Cube.
Yeah, like the Fire TV Cube. And then you have like the Roku Express or the Fire Stick, smaller versions of the system that are cheaper. So the rumors have said that we're going to get a Apple TV stick that's going to be less money because the Apple TV 4K is like $180, and that's a lot of money because the Roku Ultra is like $100. So
the Fire Stick is like $35. They go on sale all the time.
yeah, Amazon will just throw a Fire Stick at you every time you open the website.
Why not? You probably don't need it, but you know you want it.
You're ordering toilet paper? Here's a Fire Stick.
So you can watch your All American on the toilet, you know?
Yeah, or any of your Amazon original shows. The many good
We love
Amazon
those.
original. We love them. That's it for watchOS and tvOS. tvOS got no changes. watchOS was barely touched. But iPadOS 16 followed watchOS 9. And, okay, iPadOS 16 is I think it's the most controversial update we've gotten to iPad ever.
Yeah, definitely.
So the little slogan for iPadOS 16 is incredibly capable, unmistakably iPad, which is true in a bad way. So first off, the most important thing in iPadOS 16 is after 12 years, we finally have a weather app on iPad.
Yes, we do.
What a day. I never thought we would actually see the day when a weather app comes to iPad. In an interview, I think last year or the year before, 2020, Marquez Brownlee was interviewing Craig Federighi, and Marquez asked about a weather app for iPad. And I think Craig said something like, if we're going to do a weather app, we need to do it right, which is funny because it's literally just a weather app. Let's play that.
The iPad still does not have a default weather and calculator app, and they want to know why.
You know, there's some things that we have not done because to do it, we would want to do something really distinctly great in that space. But and you know, weather, it'd be easy enough to scale up our existing weather app. But we feel like, what would a great weather app for iPad be? Like, let's do that before we do it.
So yeah, we finally have weather app on iPad, it's nice. Now when you click on the weather widget that's been on iPad for 2 years, it'll take you to the app and not weatherchannel.com.
Yeah.
And then iPadOS 16 gets all of the new stuff that was from iOS 16, the family sharing photo library, the iMessage features, the focus mode features, more collaboration features, which we'll get to in a second. And the biggest thing is a new feature called Stage Manager. So Stage Manager is also one of those features that you kind of have to see. So let me do my best to describe it here. So basically, when you have a lot of apps open at the same time, Stage Manager takes one app and it puts it front and center in the middle of the screen while not taking up the full screen. So you can still see your dock at the bottom, you can see your battery percentage and your time, and you can see your blurred wallpaper.
Here,
so
let me give an example. So on Windows, you can Windows key Tab, and it opens like the window manager, right? But it keeps your tab mostly larger than the other ones, and all the other ones on a separate piece. And it's a lot like that, and same with macOS, and it blurs your background.
Yeah, on macOS, you can swipe up with 3 fingers, and then you have your apps at the top, and then you have the current window at the bottom. So it's sort of like that. You turn on Stage Manager, you have an app in the middle, and then you have 4 apps off to the left side of the screen. So in the example here, they're using Procreate, maybe? Some kind of drawing app. And then off to the left, they have Keynote, Mail, Safari, and Photos. They're off to the left in little mini windows that you can kind of see, and then you tap the little mini window with the app that you want to replace the big one with, and then they swap. And the app that you're looking at shrinks down and goes off to the left side of the screen with the other apps, and then the app that you selected goes to the middle of the stage, and then you can see that and interact with that. So it's window management on an iPad, which is something that we've always wanted, but not this way. I don't think this is useful at all. Like, it just looks weird.
Yeah, this is like not any different than the basic swipe up to clear your apps or go to different applications.
That's actually what it looks like the most. It's like when you swipe up.
It does. It's like a bigger, more professional looking maybe version of that.
But for all the iPad OS power users who use their iPad over a Mac, I guess it's great for y'all. The weird thing is also Apple said that this uses a lot of RAM, so much RAM that this is only available on M1 iPads. So only 3 of them.
And that's a big deal.
It is. So that means you can only use it on the new iPad Air and then the 11-inch and 12.9-inch iPad Pros with M1.
Like, my dad has a 2020 iPad Pro, but it's not an M1. So, like, that is a very capable machine.
Exactly. It had what the A12Z.
Like, Apex Mobile just came out. Yeah. Like, that is a very impressive chip. Like, Apex Mobile just came out, and I can easily run it at ultra settings, highest FPS that it can play, 60. Just fine. No stutters, no FPS problems at all.
I don't know why this would only be M1. Another thing I was thinking is that schools have, like, a lot of iPads, and this would be a great tool for students to use, and now schools can only use this feature in classrooms
for a $1,000 iPad.
Yeah, or a $600 Air. Like, that doesn't make a lot of sense.
A school's not going to spend $100,000 on 100 iPads for 3 grades.
Yeah,
especially a public school. Like, like that's why they buy Chromebooks, because they're cheap, they're replaceable, and they work. Like, $120, $150, unless they get them used for like 50 each in like bulk.
So the one situation where I would think this would be useful in a classroom, you have to have an M1 iPad. I really don't know why. Like you said, the A12Z is really capable. The A14 in the iPad Mini and in the last gen Air is a really capable chip. I don't know why it can't do Stage Manager.
Like, let's look at a benchmark real quick. You said A14.
Mm-hmm.
Like, in Geekbench, the M1 in the iPad Pro gets a 1705 score. The 11-inch 3rd gen iPad Pro, right? The iPad Pro 12.9-inch 5th generation gets 1706. So really, you don't see a whole lot of difference in the past 4 iPads, or past 3 iPads, my bad. But like the iPad Pro 5th gen, iPad Air 5th gen, and iPad Pro 3rd gen, there is very little to no like vision, or like not anything that you can see really.
Yeah. And I don't.
And the 4th gen iPad Air with the A14 gets 1583.
Wait, with the A15?
With the A14 Bionic.
Which is rivaling what, like a 12th gen i5? Like, an M1 iPad is on par with a 12th gen i7 or a 12th gen i9. Like, iPads are ridiculously powerful. M1 is ridiculously powerful. But M1 is based on A14. It's just an A14 with more GPU cores. And Stage Manager doesn't use GPU cores. So I really don't know why it's restricted to M1 iPads. Because you've just taken a really interesting feature that can be utilized by a lot of people and restricted it to a very small user base of iPad users with M1. It's very confusing.
Yeah, like the A14 Bionic is extremely similar single core score wise to an 11th gen i7.
Yeah, that's crazy. That is definitely powerful enough to run Stage Manager, which literally just keeps apps open in the background. And like
that shouldn't be a problem.
All iPad Pros have had like 6 to 8 gigs of RAM, and Stage Manager is only capable of holding like 5 apps open. So you really need 8 gigs of RAM and an M1 chip to hold 5 apps open? That just doesn't make a lot of sense.
I think honestly it's just a way for them to get less support tickets.
Yeah, I don't know. That's the most controversial thing. And then with this new Stage Manager, you can also plug your iPad into an external monitor, which you could do before, but before, if you plug your iPad into a monitor, it would put these big black bars on the sides of the screen, and it would be
It basically
terrible.
just projects it.
Yeah.
It just projects it to the screen. It's not an actual like display. It's just a larger view of the iPad screen.
But now we actually have monitor support. So they showed,
Yeah, so it's like native monitor support.
which is great for in the picture here, they show, and on stage, they showed someone plugging their iPad Pro into a studio display. If you are buying a studio display for your iPad Pro, we'd love to have you on the show to talk. Your workflow must be the most unique workflow. So I really don't know who this is for, but you can use Stage Manager on an external display, and on that you can have six apps open, 1 in the middle and 5 on the side. So you can have a total of like 8 or 9 open on the iPad and the monitor together, which I guess would use a gig of RAM per app. Because there's
no way.
Yeah, there's no way. So the whole...
It's holding an app open, just showing the...
It's the strangest thing.
What?
It really doesn't make a lot of sense that it's restricted to M1, but it's a cool feature.
It's good for the people who need it.
Yes,
That's
all
about
of the iPad Pro power users who multitask with a studio display.
Yes, that one.
I think in...
But honestly, the external display port, I would use because like I have 3 little sisters, right, and they like to watch Netflix, and our TV is really weird. It's really old, so we'll just sit upstairs. I'll plug my stepmom's iPad in, and it'll just like it looks terrible.
Yeah, it does.
Like it doesn't run at the full resolution. It's maybe 720p at its best, and like it just looks terrible. You have the big bezels on the side. Like they're not even called like it wouldn't even be bezels at that point. Like a third of the screen is just black bars across the side.
Right.
Like,
It's terrible.
I want to watch my TV. Like let my sisters watch their Frozen, okay? Like let it look good so they can actually enjoy it and leave me alone.
So that's nice, I guess. Plugging your iPad into a monitor is nice. Here's the other thing. iPads have... What's the feature called where you can drag your cursor over to an iPad? Or like when you're on a Mac, you can...
Oh, I know exactly
it's
what you're
called
talking about.
Universal Control. That's right. So
Yes,
with
Universal
Universal Control, if you have a Mac next to an iPad, you can use the Mac trackpad and just drag the cursor to the iPad. So if you have an external monitor, you would plug your Mac into it and use that as your primary computer. And then when you need the iPad, just drag the cursor to the iPad. But this implies that you would use your iPad as the primary computer and then use your Mac separately or not use a Mac at all, which again is a really strange workflow.
Logitech has done this for a very long time. Like not very long time, maybe like 5-6
With
years.
Flow.
Like you can have, like multiple connections going to different computers, so you can just drag and drop. Or maybe not drag and drop, but like use your mouse on different computers, right?
Mm-hmm.
But Apple's implementation of this is definitely a lot better than Logitech's.
Yeah, Universal Control, I haven't personally used it, but from everything I've read or watched, it seems to work pretty well. But this really messes with it, because now your iPad is the primary computer and not the Mac. So it's weird. So also with iPad, they talked about Metal 3 a bunch. I just learned what Metal 3 is. So it is a Apple-designed thing that developers can use in their games to use the iPad hardware to accelerate the graphics performance of their game. So it can make...
So it's just an afterburner?
Right. It says with Metal 3, developers can take their games to the next level. It's like an upscaling render thing that you can use for
like
increased
FSR.
frame rates. Right. So that is now on iPad. So developers can make like AAA titles for iPads now for
Yes,
all
let
of
me
the
just go.
iPad gamers. So now you can use...
Yeah, like on the Microsoft Surface.
Right, you can game on a Surface and you can game on your iPad now. So now you can take your iPad, plug it into your $1,700 studio display, and play games, AAA titles, on your iPad.
Just not Fortnite, because Epic Games.
Right, because Epic.
Yeah, but we love them. Tim Sweeney.
Yep. Tim Sweeney, we'd love to have you on.
Yes.
If you're
Talk
listening.
about it. Anytime.
iPadOS also gets the new Home app. They get live text and video. They get the family sharing things. The final thing that they talked about is collaboration features. So now iPad gets a new app called Freeform, which is basically Apple Jamboard, if you will. So if you've never used Jamboard, it is single-handedly the worst piece of software I have ever used. It is a Google Workspace app that's basically a whiteboard that multiple people can mess with at the same time, and it is terrible. Absolutely terrible. So now Apple has a version of that called Freeform. You can invite people via mail and iMessage to collaborate on your Freeform page for all of the Apple Workspace users. They talked a lot about this. I don't know how many teams there are that actually prefer Apple's own Workspace apps over Google Workspace.
I will never use anything other than Google Workspace except PowerPoint.
Google Workspace is phenomenal. Like
It is.
collaboration there is really good. We have a shared doc open now with our script on it that we can both edit in real time, and it's flawless.
It's absolutely amazing. Like, there's, like, no delay.
So this feature was basically made for all of the teams in Apple Park. Like every team of Apple developers can use this so they can be on a FaceTime call and edit their Apple page document after brainstorming
Yeah.
on their Freeform page. So no one will use that, but it's cool that it has it. That's pretty much it for iPad. The huge feature was Stage Manager, which is only on 3 iPad models currently sold. So if you have an M1 iPad, you can use Stage Manager. If you don't, iPadOS 16 gives you a weather app, which is amazing.
I mean, and there's probably going to be patches to be able to run this. Like, to change your legacy information, so, like, it knows, like, it basically, like, so you can trick your iPad into thinking you have an M1.
Yeah, I wonder if there's
you
a
can-
workaround.
Because you can do that on Windows. You can go into the registry and like change the processor name, and it changes it in the BIOS, the system information, task manager, everything. There's probably workarounds on iPad through like profiles and like jailbreaking it to get this to work if you really want to try that hard. But nobody really wants it that bad. Come on now.
And you can also now use, the last thing, you can use your iPad as a reference monitor. So you can use Sidecar on your Mac and use your iPad as a color reference display when editing in SDR and HDR on your Mac. So I guess the iPad screen on the Mini LED iPad Pro is better than the new MacBook Pro screen, or better than the Pro display, because they're saying that your iPad is a better reference monitor when color is critical, is what they said, than your Mac. So I don't know
For color
how
accuracy?
that works. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know about that, but we'll see.
Yeah, we have to test all this. So that's iPadOS 16.
It's cool. They added new features. A couple of them are helpful. A couple of them are stupid.
We have weather.
Yeah, we have weather now, so
Weather
it's
app.
about time. Only took them
Yes.
12 years.
The final software announcement was macOS. It turned out to not be named macOS Mammoth like all the rumors. Instead, Apple's crack marketing team
That brings us to the latest exploits of Apple's crack product marketing team.
came up with macOS Ventura.
The team once again piled into their macOS naming microbus and wove their way down Highway 1. Chasing the vibrant display of colorful California wildflowers, they finally came to rest where stunning surf meets lush alluvial plains in beautiful Ventura.
With
Hey,
macOS...
Okay. Hold on. Have you ever seen Ace Ventura?
No.
Okay, we're watching that movie. That is probably single-handedly one of the best movies, comedies I've ever watched.
Do they use Macs?
Oh my goodness. No.
So I guess they decided on macOS Mammoth and then canceled it at the last second. And then Craig got a call. He was watching Ace Ventura and then just decided, sure, macOS Ventura.
Yep.
macOS Ventura is kind of the same. Really not much to talk about. It adds new Spotlight features. It adds Stage Manager, which,
Ew.
I mean, think of that
Gross.
what you want. But if you're done using your iPad with Stage Manager, you can use it on your Mac instead to use a better version of all the apps you'd use on your iPad. We now have FaceTime handoff, which is incredible. So now if
This
you
is
have
a good idea.
I love it. If you have a FaceTime call that you're on your iPhone, you can walk up to your Mac and just continue the call right from your Mac, which is really nice. You have Metal 3. They spent way too much time on Metal 3 for Mac. So now...
I mean, there are a lot of developers who make content and games for Mac. Like, if we're being realistic, then this is a pretty good idea.
So on games that people do play on Macs, they will look really
Solitaire.
nice. Solitaire, basically. They spent
At 5K.
Solitaire at 5K. They spent a lot of time talking about their audience of Mac gamers, and I'm really confused because I haven't met one person who games on a Mac. Like
Me and Andrew both use GeForce Now to play Apex sometimes on our MacBooks.
Yeah, that's when we're not gaming natively. Like, if given the choice, we'd obviously pick
Yeah.
a MacBook Air for our intense gaming.
Oh, yeah.
Or
yeah.
even, like, a Surface, per the Microsoft commercial.
Oh, yeah.
That is a
Surface
great
Pro.
gaming
Mhm.
computer, too.
Yes.
But you can game better on a Mac with Metal 3. Okay, whoever's doing that, you can now compete with your friends at 40 FPS on your MacBook. So good for you.
Good for you.
When you're not gaming and you're using a Mac for what it's good for, productivity stuff, Zoom calls, collaboration via not Apple's collaboration apps, you can
Yes.
now use what I think is the coolest feature I've seen in a long time. It's called Continuity Camera.
This is definitely my favorite.
It lets you use your iPhone as a webcam, but there's more. When you're on a call on your Mac, I believe it's in any app. They show it in FaceTime, they show it in Zoom. I would assume that maybe Google Meet would do it, maybe not, since they're directly competing with FaceTime. But in what seems to be a lot of video apps, you can take your iPhone and with using the not yet announced stand that you buy, mount from Belkin, which is probably a ridiculous amount of money, you can mount your iPhone to the top of your MacBook screen and use your iPhone's camera as your webcam with no cord, completely natively.
And we like this.
We definitely like this.
There's ways to do this. Like, right now I'm using my phone as a webcam for our call with camo. But having this natively on Mac, especially with it being flawless and with no with no wires, this is an amazing idea and a really good implementation.
Yeah, it allows you to have studio light and portrait mode effects with your iPhone. It adds center stage to the Mac, which is something that iPads have seen for the past 2 years. And then it also has what has to be the most technologically advanced feature that I have seen in a very long time. It has a feature called Desk View. So when
This is crazy.
This is absolutely insane. So when your iPhone is attached to the top of your MacBook, it uses the ultra-wide camera on your iPhone to show the people you're on a call with your desk. So they did a live demo in the event. Craig dialed up his friend on his MacBook, attached his iPhone, and the other person could see his keyboard. Like his external keyboard.
Yeah, like below the monitor.
Below that, which is incredible. So it's using the ultra-wide camera on your phone to see what's on your desk, and then flip the image to make it look like it's an overhead camera. and then it looks pretty high resolution too. And
This is a lot of AI that is going into
that's
this.
a lot of work. I assume this is gonna kill your iPhone battery too.
What I would like to see is that you can like if they had one of the mounts that has a battery attached to it, so you could charge the stand and then use your phone with MagSafe to hold it on and charge it while you're using it, because this is definitely going to kill battery life
on both the Mac and the iPhone.
Yeah,
but you can now have an overhead camera with just your iPhone. Again, this would be really cool for school too. Like if a teacher's doing a Zoom call with someone, they can just have this overhead camera and show a worksheet.
I can guarantee you, everybody listening to this has had a teacher who uses the little projector thingy with the arm with the paper, and you can count every pixel.
It's bad
on the projector. It's bad. But now that Apple's using an implementation of this that looks good, it's effective, this is going to be a huge success, I guess. They also brought Freeform to Ventura, which just no.
So now, after you collaborate on your iPad, you can switch to your Mac and pick up where you left off in your Apple Jamboard. This is huge for every Apple design team and no one outside Apple Park. They renamed system preferences now to system settings and system...
Which makes more sense.
It does. I guess system preferences was always kind of weird. System settings now looks just like the iOS settings app. And I think when you set up a MacBook for the first time, as a new Mac user too, it'll be a lot more familiar coming from an iPhone. So that is iPadOS 16 and macOS Ventura. Let's take a quick break, and then we'll talk about M2 chip and the new MacBooks.
Okay, welcome back from the break. Apple, at their event, released a new chip. This is nice considering that we've been on M1 for what, 2 years now?
2 years, yeah.
Going on 2.5, like, we've been on M1 for over 2 years now. Seeing a new chip is refreshing. We did see the, generations of the M1, the Pro, the Max, the Ultra.
Yeah, we've seen every form of M1 so far. We saw the base M1 in the Air and the Pro and the Mac Mini, and then we saw M1 Pro and M1 Max, which blew away all expectations in the 14-inch and 16-inch MacBook Pro. And then we saw the M1 Ultra, which is the Apple Silicon chip that's on par with an AMD Threadripper in the Mac Studio. And we've finally got an M2, which is not better than the M1 Pro, M1 Max, or M1 Ultra. It's better than the normal M1. So this replaces M1 as the base starting chip in the Mac lineup.
This is nice to see, but we liked the generations of the M1, but it is really nice.
It was great.
Refreshing. It's really refreshing to see a new chip come out, especially with it's on the 5 nanometer now. Or was it the same? What nanometer was M1 on?
It was on the first gen nanometer, because the A14, which actually debuted in the iPad Air. The A14 was the first 5 nanometer chip from Apple, and then they put the A14 in the 12 series. And then the M1 is basically an A14 with a higher thermal ceiling and more GPU cores.
But it's good to see that a new generation of a 5 nanometer. Okay, nanometer is really subjective. Between Intel, AMD, and Apple now, the nanometers are different, like transistors on a die. They're different, they're subjective to each company and what their chip looks like. But Apple's coming from their first gen 5 nanometer chip, seeing a second gen one is nice.
One thing that is worth noting is that this is not the third gen 5 nanometer chip. So Apple's chip manufacturer, TSMC, had the first generation of 5 nanometer chips for the A14 and M1, and then this is built on the second generation of the 5 nanometer chip. The Snapdragon 8 Gen 1, which is the flagship Snapdragon mobile chip in new Android smartphones
From Qualcomm,
is based on the 3rd gen 5 nanometer. So this is still 2nd gen, which is interesting. Maybe M2 Pro and M2 Max will be on 3rd gen, or maybe M3 would be 3rd gen, because 3 and 3rd gen, I don't know. So M2 is not anything revolutionary. It's just a healthy spec bump from M1. So it features an 8-core CPU and up to a 12-core GPU. It has 20 billion transistors now, which is 25% more than M1. It supports up to 24 gigs of unified memory, which is DDR5 now. And then it has a new 16-core neural engine, which is nice for AI stuff, like that live text feature.
Okay, just to clarify, Apple's version of Apple's concept of CUDA cores is execution units. Just to clear that. Like the M1 Ultra has 8200 execution units, which is basically CUDA, like it has 8200 CUDA cores, so it'd be similar to a 3080.
M2 also features the same media engine that we first saw in the M1 Pro and M1 Max. So this media engine makes video editing much faster now. So you can now have multiple streams of ProRes 4 and 8K video, and then you can also encode 8K video much quicker with this media engine, which actually makes the M2 base model chip a decent chip for video editing.
Like, what is this going to be similar to?
So, if you look at
12900 KS or what?
If you look at Apple's lineup, they have M1. Like, let's go back to M1. They have M1,
Which is similar to what?
Which is like let's compare it directly to Intel's.
It was the 11700K, the 11 Gen i7. That's what we saw.
Yeah, which is what it's on par with performance-wise. But in terms of the lineup, that's like an i3. And then M1 Pro is like i5. M1 Max is like i7.
Not spec-wise. We're just like
not spec-wise, just like lineup-wise. And then M1 Ultra is more like Xeon. And then M1
I guess that's fair. I guess that's fair because it's like their Xeon Gold.
Yeah, M1 Ultra was beating Xeons in Geekbenches and tying Threadrippers.
And that's insanely impressive considering
that's really good.
Like that's their 4th chip they've ever produced. Well, not like their desktop chip.
So this M2 chip holds the same spot in Apple's lineup that the i3 or i5 does in Intel's. And this is like on par with i7 and i9, 12th gen, which is unbelievable in a base model.
This is crazy. Like if you wanted to get a 12th gen i9 laptop, like you're looking at like at least $1,500. And you can get a base model. I'm not going to say that yet. Okay. At least, and if you want to get a 12th gen i9 processor on a laptop, you're looking at like $1,500 plus minimum.
And all those performance benchmarks you see are also when it's plugged in. As soon as you unplug a Windows laptop, you lose a lot of power.
Just decreases, and I can speak from experience.
That's a power hungry chip.
It is.
And they showed a chart. The M2 chip, I think it ties an i7 in performance while using like 50% less power or something like that. It's
which
really
is crazy.
Efficient. So Apple went out, they released M2, and then they released the first 2 laptops to show off the new M2 chip.
A new 13-inch MacBook Pro, which is the same body as last gen MacBook Pro.
Like, you should not buy this computer. It is the same everything as last year's MacBook Pro, except the processor. It has the same chunky bezels. It has the same horrible touch bar. It's fairly thick, and it's just not. It's not a very good buy. But
they did release a new MacBook Air, and this thing is beautiful. Like, absolutely one of the most beautiful laptops I have ever seen. Like, better than a Razer Blade 15.
Half of that, I think, is the design, and half is the color. So in terms of design, it's much thinner than the current... Well, it's not much thinner. It's thinner than the current MacBook Air, the M1 model, because that one was a wedge shape. And this new MacBook Air is a square shape all the way.
It reminds me a lot of a PowerBook.
It does. It looks like a PowerBook. It actually looks like a Pixelbook.
It does.
Sort of, only it's good.
Except it's good, yeah. So, like, what is the thickness of the M2?
So the M2 Air
Air
is 0.44 inches thick, so less than half an inch thick.
Yeah, and it's 2.7 pounds.
Which is, it's not that much lighter than the last MacBook Air, which was 2.8 pounds, but 2.7 pounds is a light laptop.
Especially for a laptop. Like, my 2012 MacBook Pro, I think it's probably close to 10 pounds.
It's so heavy.
Like, I'm not even kidding. Like, when I work out, I think, oh, I'm holding my MacBook. Wow.
Yeah, pretty much.
Like, it is so heavy. Like,
Yeah,
I can curl 4 MacBooks.
2.7 pounds is great then. It's
yes.
a lot thinner. It's a unified... This will be so nice in a backpack.
Yes.
And the other half of it being the most beautiful tech product I've ever seen is the new color. So it has 4 finishes. There's Space Gray, Silver, Starlight, and Midnight. So we've all seen Space Gray and Silver. Starlight is like a lighter champagne rose goldy color. And Midnight is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen.
It looks blue under perfect lighting. Like, under studio lighting, it looks blue. But the second you look at it with any shadow, it's matte black. And it looks phenomenal.
A very dark blue. It's like it's the same color as the Midnight Apple Watch. It's darker than Pacific Blue on the 12 Pro. It's a really good color.
And this is insane because they didn't have this with the M1 MacBook Pros that had MagSafe charging.
So yeah, we now get MagSafe charging
with matching
on
colors.
The MacBook Air with matching colors. So whatever color you get, the MagSafe cable will be color matched. And
so you don't have to get a rose gold M1 MacBook Pro with MagSafe with a silver cable. So
yeah,
that definitely makes me happy.
And the Midnight MagSafe charger just looks amazing.
And it does look good too. The cable, like the braided cable, is fantastic looking.
Yeah, and that will fast charge the MacBook Air.
And this is MagSafe 3.
Yeah,
right?
This is MagSafe 3. It's very convenient to have. It's color matched. It looks great. The new MacBook Air has a brighter display, so it's 500 nits instead of 400 nits. 500 nits is what we had on the last few MacBook Pros.
Which we do like to see.
Which we do like to see. It's a great display. And it's brighter now.
And it doesn't it really doesn't impact battery life a whole lot either, going from 400 to 500.
No, it's rated for 18 hours of battery life, which is the same
as... Which is absolutely insane for a laptop.
Which is, well, that's insane if it's true. It's based on Apple's battery testing method, which is playing a video for 18 hours, which no one does. So we're both planning on getting these MacBook Airs, and in a future episode, we will do an update on performance and battery life.
One thing that I did find peculiar was the RAM increments.
The RAM increments are interesting.
Like 8 and 16 makes sense, right? Like 8, 16, boom, boom, very common laptop RAM sizes. Mm-hmm. But 24 gigs, that's really interesting.
It is.
So basically they have 3 onboard 8 gig DIMMs, which Apple, I don't know if, because it's their unified memory. So on PC or like most Windows computers, you have dual channel, single channel, and triple or quad channel depending on your generation of motherboard and CPU, right? So basically, the single channel, AMD really likes dual channel RAM because basically it just shares the speed of both RAM sticks and shares it with the processor. And just having one RAM stick really slows an AMD processor down. But I don't know how this works with Apple, if it's similar, because it's their unified memory soldered onto their chip. But I guess we'll see.
I think that the problem with doing more than 24 gigs of RAM is that you start getting the price way too high. So the new MacBook Air starts at $1199, and then the RAM upgrade is $200 to 16 gigs.
Wish I was shaming, but I did some research and DDR5 RAM is not cheap.
It's not. It's very fast. It's very efficient. Soldered onto the board with a higher memory bandwidth now.
Yes.
Will be nice with M2. This should be really fast RAM. The M2 Air has improved mics and speakers. Along with the MagSafe port, it has 2 Thunderbolt 3 ports, not Thunderbolt 4.
Which is interesting.
I believe, which is interesting. I'm so glad we have the ports back now.
Yeah, for now. On the MacBook Pro.
But there's no touch bar on the MacBook Air. As always, we have a new row of function keys. The keyboard looks very similar to the 14-inch and 16-inch Pro. The Touch ID button is a full key with a little round part in the middle for your finger. It's a very good computer. I think that the M2 Air, it's a little pricey. I don't know if $1,200 was the right price. They kept the old M1 Air with the older design around for $999, and that's a really good deal. But for $200, you get a slightly better display, you get the color, you get MagSafe, and you get M2. M2 is supposed to be 1.4 times faster than M1, and that's with the GPU core upgrade. And then it says up to 15 times faster than the Intel-based MacBook Air, which just shows you how far ahead M1 was.
Yeah. And honestly, I'm going to say that the M2 MacBook Air is well priced because you can get a Surface Laptop 4 from Microsoft for $1,300. And the specs on that in a similar blue, it has a 4th gen Ryzen 7, a 4980U.
Which would likely lose to M2.
It would lose to an 11th gen i5.
Yeah, so it would definitely lose to M2.
Yeah, 8 gigs of RAM, DDR4, and 256 gig SSD. Microsoft's SSDs are fast though, so I will give them that. But yeah, so I think it is competitively priced for laptops similar to it. And Apple's done a really good job with their integrated GPUs so far, so I guess we'll see.
But the days of bad MacBooks are over. This is, I think, now the best overall laptop you can buy with M2, with MagSafe, with the display. It's just an incredible overall laptop, which is why you and I are both planning on picking one of these up.
Yeah.
So that was WWDC. It was a pretty big event, actually. iOS 16 saw a lot of improvements visually. And then iPadOS has the controversial Stage Manager. WatchOS exists. tvOS does not, I guess. macOS Ventura gets the same Spotlight improvements, Stage Manager, Continuity Camera. Macs and iPads both get Metal 3 for gaming on Apple devices, sure. And then we get the really good M2 chip and the M2 Air. I think this was a pretty good event overall. The only disappointment was no Mac Pro and no
I
Pro
was
display.
really excited for a new Mac Pro. The Pro display, I was a little, it's not that big a deal. But the Mac Pro, if you ever just go on Apple's store or website and just max out or just play with the specs of a Mac Pro, it is so fun and entertaining to see.
Yeah. And right now, the best Mac you can get is an M1 Ultra Mac Studio. And keep in mind, that is a $4,000 computer that is on par with a Threadripper. And that will not be the fastest Apple computer in the lineup.
And it is tiny for a Threadripper
It's
power.
so tiny.
And smaller than like the size of a micro ITX motherboard for an entire computer with cooling, 64 gigs of RAM, 2 terabyte SSD. That is absolutely insane and highly impressive coming from Apple, especially with their like huge computer lineup.
Yeah. And the rumors that we've been seeing, John Prosser has mentioned this before. He said that the Mac Pro will feature a M2X chip or something along the lines of that. It will basically be 2 M2 Ultras. Because the M1 Ultra is 2 M1 Maxes combined. So the M2X in the Mac Pro will be 2 M2 Ultras combined. So that's basically like having 2 chips that are both faster than one Threadripper in the same computer. So
I don't even know a PC like that would be similar to that. Like a processor?
I don't think the PC world can match this for a long time. We're talking like well over the performance of a Threadripper, if not twice as fast as a Threadripper. I think this will be the first computer to hit a 40,000 multi-core score on Geekbench. Like, this is absolutely insane.
Like the Xeon Platinum 8280 is an 8-core processor. Or sorry, 28 core processor.
Yeah, and M1 Ultra has 24 CPU cores, I think.
And that's just the Ultra. Imagine double that.
Imagine 2 of them.
Like, we're looking at, like, a Threadripper, a Xeon, and an AMD EPYC processor all combining, which is absolutely insane. Like, AMD EPYC processors, like EPYC, is crazy. Linus Tech Tips has done videos on these, and they are amazing for servers and for gaming, really.
Mm-hmm. The Mac's future is very bright.
It really is.
This new MacBook Air is great for students, for video editors, actually, with this media engine. The 14-inch and 16-inch Pros are great. Ventura will make them better. And we hope to see Mac Pro soon with a new upgraded version of M2. But yeah, overall, this year's Dub was very interesting. A lot of questions are left about the future of tech. The new CarPlay feature is a very futuristic thing. We're not going to see that for a long time. I hope it's not vaporware. I hope we eventually see it. But this year's Dub was really all about the future of cars, the future of computers. And I'm impressed. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, me too.
So that's it for the first episode of CTRL-AC. If you have any comments, questions, concerns, suggestions, you can tweet at us. I am at UtterlyDrew.
And I'm at Cole, WWWeb, 2Bs.
And we will see you guys next time.
See you in the next episode. Thank you guys for listening. Don't forget to like, comment, and share. And don't forget to subscribe. Sorry, I had to throw that in there. We're not going to actually add that.
The CTRL-AC podcast is hosted and edited by Andrew Utterback and Cole Weber. And our intro and outro music is created by Ayden Perkins. Hello, and welcome to
Nope.
Okay.
You cannot move your mic when you start talking. You'd be like,
hi, welcome to the show.
We're gonna talk about tech now. I think you just broke the microphone.
If you're wearing headphones and listening, we're very sorry. And this is definitely going at the end of the show. Like, this is the last thing people will hear before the show just cuts out.